Hello and welcome. Apologies for starting off late tonight. Now, the surveying and mining sectors are identified to be crucial to institutional and infrastructural advancement of the country. Experts point out that 80% of activities on the surface of the earth require mapping, thereby making the surveying profession one of the foremost and primary professions in the world. Now, Nigeria's surveyors are living up to the change created by advanced technology in digital mapping and other services. The country's apex mapping agency, the Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation, is charged with the responsibility of providing and coordinating surveying and mapping activities within the country. The achievements recorded include the major demarcation work carried out in collaboration with the National Boundary Commission, success stories in boundary dispute resolutions, and other developmental issues. Now, the list is endless. We'll be talking about so many of them tonight. And so the focus is on the effort of the surveying sector to make Nigeria better. But first, let's get to see this report by Mie Ogidi.
Nigeria, covering a landmass of approximately 923,736 square kilometers, and the primary responsibility of the Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation is to provide and coordinate surveying as well as mapping activities to this prized resource. With the progression of time and the advancement in mainstream information technology, hardware, software, geographic information system, GIS, and the global positioning system, GPS, demand for map data is fast evolving from analog to digital. And the #1 surveying office in the country is squaring up to the challenges of the time with the generation of modern maps.
The collaboration, for instance, between the Nigerian Army and the Office of Surveyor General is still on for us to generate and produce maps for their type of operation, and we have been able to do that.
Minister of Defense Mansour Dan Ali, while playing host to a delegation from the Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation, raised some salient issues sometime this year.
You cannot fight any war without knowing your position and the position of the enemy. So you almost cover every defense, security, corruption, and the economy too. So the three cardinal principles rest in your office, and your office is being sidelined.
Yes, in the area of fighting corruption, the Surveyor General's office houses the map, indicating all the federal government landed property. So, on the 2nd of March this year, the Presidential Committee on Assets Recovery visited the Office of the Surveyor General, and a copy of the document was obtained.
We have acquired a knowledge of this, and it will help us to do our work very well and recover these properties, particularly those of them that are in the hands of squatters and other people who have taken them illegally.
Surveying made easy, as drones for aerial surveying, street identification, as well as maps for international boundaries and flashpoints to assist fighting forces was carried out, and the exercise was successful in Katsina State.
With the drone now, let me say what will take you close to about 2 months. You can overrun it in less than 1 week.
This continuously operating reference system, located in the Surveyor General's office in Abuja, Nigeria, provides geospatial information as well as accurate weather and distance predictions in the aviation industry, and also assists in the agricultural sector.
And it is this same equipment at full blown that the Nigerian aviation will use. When you say you are going from here to China, how do you know the distance between here and China? The distance between here and China is predetermined by the equipment here and that same equipment in China, because they both know their coordinate.
But how can Nigerians benefit maximally from all these services? Can this generate revenue for the government? What measures are the field officers taking to protect government landed property at the state level? These and many more are some of the areas experts will discuss on today's edition of Tuesday Live. Mie Ogede, NTA News.
And that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guest to you. Tonight, as we said, it's all about surveying and national development. So expectedly, here with us tonight, all surveyors. They're right here. Let's start off by introducing the Surveyor General of the Federation, Ibisinte Awudu. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right. Also here tonight is the Registrar, Surveyors Council of Nigeria, Mohammed Mansour Kabir. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Let me also welcome to this program the Acting Director, Geodesy Department, Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation, Adibume Abdul Ganiu Adiemi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
And also here tonight is Kayode Oluwamotemi, who is Deputy President, Nigerian Institution of Surveyors.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here. As usual, we acquaint you with the procedure tonight. By now, it's expected you're well acquainted with what we do. So, at the appropriate time, you can be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them. And as we always say, for those who will be phoning in, the numbers will be right there on screen. When you do get through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through to the studio, you'll see your name appear on screen. Once that happens, it means you are through to the studio. Just go straight to the point. Your question, your comment, don't bother too much about the greetings. And we advise you keep it short so others can also get on the platform. So once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Surveying, let's start off by asking basically the broad mandate. We did touch on some of it in the introduction, but the broad mandate of the Office of the Surveyor General.
Thank you very much. The broad mandate of the Office of Surveyor General of the Federation is encapsulated in the second schedule, section 4, part 2, item K, paragraph 25 of the 1999 Constitution and its amendments, where it is stipulated the one is the trigonometrical surveys, second is cadastral, third is topographical. This is the broad constitutional mandate for the office to carry out trigonometrical survey in all ramifications, and the cadastral, which is titled to personal lands, titled to states, what are the limits. Thirdly is topographical, which is dealing with the topography, the details, the content of that area of land or parcel of land, whether it's a land covered by water or not. Those are the three constitutional responsibilities of the Office of the Surveyor General of Federation. And the statutory function is in the implementation of the Survey Coordination Act of 1962 and its amendments to implement that provisions of that law, that anything you are doing with respect to mapping, that is then Director of Federal Service of the Federation will have to give counter notice to that work you want to do and will supervise it, including giving to the office 2 copies of all the documents. The imageries, the both processed, unprocessed, and at the end of the day, and after due quality control and assurance, the Surveyor General of the Federation, now Surveyor General, then Federal Service, will give a copy to the Surveyor General of that state where this area mapping or airborne survey has been carried out. These are the broad constitutional mandate and the statutory mandates. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. But we'll just go a step further and say, look, how well has this core mandate been fulfilled?
This very core mandate has been going on. Of course, it is a work in progress. We've been having the different areas of this very core mandate being done. In trigonometrical surveys, you saw the drone. These are part of trigonometrical surveys. Cadastral, with respect to the boundary at the background, we got the boundaries that are being done. So it is something that is going on, and as I speak to you, we've gone like in topographical survey, the entire water bodies of the country, roads, all, whether it's footpath or major roads, we have already mapped about 55% of all the water bodies in Nigeria has been mapped. We are trying to extract from the satellite image of the country, which we also have. As I speak, we have that satellite imagery at 2.5 meter resolution of the entire country and 0.5 meter resolution of 330 cities and towns in Nigeria, which is available for government and the citizens to access and use it for their informed decision making and national development.
All right, we'll leave it there for the time being. We'll return to you in just a moment, because issues that, especially when people talk about surveyors and surveying, they're looking at boundaries. You've touched on that, but we'll come to it. Let's come to the registrar, the surveyors council, and see, what does that office entail?
The Office of the Registrar Surveyors Council of Nigeria is the administrative office as well as the CEO office of the Surveyors Council of Nigeria. The council itself is created by law of the Federation, S18, LFN 2008. Some of the functions that were given to the council by the provision of the law is, number one, to determine who is a surveyor.
Right.
Secondly, to determine the level of knowledge and skill that is required for persons who want to become surveyors. Thirdly, to also set standards for institutions and other accreditation exercises. Fourthly, to control the practice of the profession in all its ramifications. When it says on ramification, it means in totality.
All right.
And then fifthly, the issue of maintenance of discipline in the profession. And finally, any other job or any other assignment that is being given to the council by the government to conduct.
So we could...
It's a regulatory agency.
Right. So we could really ask you just, you'd be able to tell us just how many surveyors we have in this country, and if this country is adequately serviced by surveyors. You can give us that information?
Yeah, sure, I can give you that information. Currently, we have 3,427 registered surveyors. There are about 2,503 that are going mentorship, what we call pupillage. Then about 970 technicians and technologists.
So these numbers, you think, are okay to service this country?
It's never near accurate, adequate.
Right.
Never near that, because when you compare to the population of the country, the United Nations world population, World Bank gave the population of Nigeria estimated at about 197 million people as for 2018. So when you divide that by 3,427, give you the average of roughly one surveyor for about 60,000 people. That is quite inadequate, because naturally every individual need the service of surveyor, one or the other. You may need for demarcation of your boundaries, you may need for service of showing where to go, how to go, the government. So it's not even near adequate. If we have up to 1 million surveyors, I think they cannot do for Nigeria. If you look at the complexity of the country, it's estimated all along only about 3% of this country has been demarcated and surveyed. So that shows you the inadequacy of the number of surveyors in the country.
Okay, that's
It's
good.
not sufficient.
All right, we'll return to that. So there's room for so many more to come in. But let's go on to the acting director, Geodesy Department. And, well, clearly the first thing we'll be asking is Geodesy Department, what does it do?
Thank you, sir. Geodesy Department is the department in charge of so many things. First is, what is geodesy? This is the precise determination of features on the surface of the earth represented in form of a plan. So the geodesy department is the department that is the custodian of one vital important features and the vital important features of the survey profession, which we call the survey beacon. And the survey beacon, as we all know, there are two types of the beacon. We have the active survey beacon. We have the recent one now, which are passive one. The passive survey beacon are survey beacon established before now. Those we have on top of hills, those we have that are very far away from us. But of late, the advent of technology brought in the core, what we call the continuously operating reference station. And these are stations that give us precise position of point to about 1 million per min, 1 ppm, 1 per million. And the geodesy department is the department that is the custodians of records of all these coordinates. It's equally the department that deals with climate change.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll return to that, specifically the issue of climate change that you talked about. You say specific, precise positioning, you have that. But then the Deputy President of the Nigerian Institution of Surveyors is also here, and for you, just give us a cursory look at the profession of surveying in Nigeria today.
Thank you so much. The Nigerian Institute of Surveyors takes care of the welfare of all surveyors in the Federation. And like the register said, we have almost 4,500 surveyors covering the entire boundaries of Nigeria. And we have 36 branches, plus Abuja, making 37, where all our members, where they do the survey practices. Also, as we ensure that the welfare of the surveyors are well taken care of, we don't ignore the issue of discipline. As when the so-called register has examined them, they do everything, then they still come. We will now take over to make sure that the survey practice is well organized in Nigeria. And we should not forget that the institution is 84 years old. So it's one of the oldest professions, survey, in this country. And we're happy about the results we are getting from our members throughout the Federation.
Okay. Well, let's go into many more areas now, which lots and lots of Nigerians would really be interested in, since we're talking about, precise mapping Nigeria. Surveyors can tell us just about everything that, that's within the boundaries of Nigeria as it is. A recent experience in Nigeria, which came as a shock to many people, Abuja, the FCT, experienced tremors. And there have been so many explanations about what happened. The first issue, people want to say, does Nigeria, and indeed the Federal Capital Territory, fall within an area where you can have this kind of earth movement? And If this is so, has this been captured in the past? Is there any data to support this? Has it always been there? Or is it after this experience that the country has scrambled to begin to take a deeper look into what could have been missed before?
So,
yes,
okay.
Well, perhaps it's open, so
okay,
maybe this will go direct to the director of geodesy.
Yes, sir. The first thing I would like to talk about is what we call earth tremor. Earth tremor, in a sense, is a lighter earthquake.
All right.
Of lower magnitude beyond 5. And when we now say we have earthquake, what we are talking about is basically shaking of the earth. And when the earth shakes, what has happened is that there are movement, tectonic movement underneath the earth's surface. When this body come in contact with each other, they release a force. This force will come to the lithosphere via the seismic wave. When we now have this, then we'll now say we have earthquake or earth tremor, depending on the magnitude. The recent occurrence, before now, we have recorded earthquake or earth tremor in some various places in the country. We are not permitted to say this out so that people will not be panicked and they will not be scared that peradventure is going to happen to maybe their house or to their location. But we know that there has been occurrences before now and are basically captured. But of late, the federal government established some highly sophisticated equipment. And the occurrence in the Koi was recorded by this equipment. Highly sophisticated equipment that can give us, that can even go up to 40 kilometers from wherever it is installed. I talked about the core the other time. Yeah. These are equipment that continuously monitored a position. And if there's going to be any earthquake or any natural disaster, up to about 40 kilometers from wherever the station is installed, by this equipment. We have at least, presently we have about 18 of it distributed all over the country. The issue now is how can we monitor effectively so that we can easily predict if there's going to be any other occurrence. It's basically by establishing more of this at strategic locations around the country and monitor, that is, record, analyze the data over a period of time, and then we'll now be able to predict that at a particular time in time, there's likely because it's a natural phenomenon.
So all the talk about, well, it can't happen here, it's just not right.
Yeah, you see, if I may come in there,
yes.
We should not forget the fact that Cameroon Mountain is a volcanic mountain, volcanic activities. And how far away from that mountain? And the Malabo and some other countries are a product of that volcanic activities. So this very core station we are talking, core equipment, records is more precise than any other one that anybody can talk about in this country, because it's accurate to about 1 million of a millimeter. So for us to do the needful, that's why we work with some other government agencies. Look at probable lines. Then we can install these very core stations along those lines. Like in FCT, there's only one in my building, in the Office of Surveillance Building, which is not enough. But if we have them spread within 40 kilometer radius, we'll be able to monitor effectively. And we'll be able to tell, because what are we doing is time-lapse analysis. So this was the recording. In 1 week, in 1 month, 3 weeks, 3 months. So with that, as you record the data, you can now see some distortions. Then there are mathematical models to tell you of what probably will happen. As I speak to you, Nigeria and the US, they are moving away from each other. And it is this movement that we record with that core. That's one of the applications, monitoring the tectonic plates, the movements beneath the surface.
Exactly. So this is what I really would like to find out. With this kind of movement, is it possible that the position of any country, say Nigeria for instance, will be affected in such a way that the mapping would slightly move? Is it possible?
Yes. Because the whole globe is moving, and it is a movement that produces those hills and mountains you see.
Right.
And definitely, the movement keeps on going because rocks are of different ages. And beneath us, it's just like, so these things will happen, but we need to monitor and be on the, and give early warning signs. That's why in other countries where surveying and mapping is given the rightful place, they will give alarm that so time there will be an earthquake or there will be this and that, because they are monitoring this, recording it, analyzing the data over time, and apply the necessary formula to be able to tell the public, the government office and the public, that this is what they are.
Yes. Small addition to what he has just said. Like he said, the continents are expanding, the spreading far, and so many instances are happening all over the world. But the case of surveying, like he all emphasized, is the issue of prediction. But we have to go beyond that, because we play very important role during the search and rescue operations.
Right.
It's very important because we have the instruments, we have the maps, we have the data concerning the buildings. That's what you call the building model, and everything, how from the maps and diagrams we can always tell you, okay, in Abuja where this happened, the building that were affected were maybe 10-story buildings, 2-story buildings, and the likelihood of how many people are there. It's easy from the means of surveying to estimate even the people that are inside that place at a time. So that makes it easier for you to organize such a rescue operation. But also, post-incidents is very important, because earthquake is something very catastrophic. A whole society can be destroyed. By the time that destruction has taken place, the buildings have collapsed, the boundaries have become non-existent now. So when there is post-construction, reconstruction problems, you find that people will tend to be fighting over boundaries, because such boundaries are no longer there. So with the maps and information and data we have, we can be able to precisely locate where XYZ building were before the earthquake. We can also use that for services like location of hospitals. Mapping is very important. That during the earthquake, it's easy for you to tell people, okay, if you go to XYZ, maybe 200 meters, there's a hospital there, and you can get assistance. So these are the kinds of things that surveyors are always involved in, particularly in disaster issues.
All right. It's a good thing you mentioned the question of boundaries, knowing where, post-incident, knowing where things should be, because that also takes us to one of the volatile areas in this country, determining where your boundary is, where your space, as they call it, is. And the surveyors who are involved in mapping, and why is it that we're having these frequent conflicts, especially among communities, determining where they are located? Is it that we haven't had adequate mappings of, precise maps of where, communities are?
Well, if I may comment there, one thing is that the physical features of the country are recorded in the government offices, the Surveyor General of the Federation Office, and that of the states. And these boundaries, both ethnic, administrative, are recorded. But sometimes, you know, when we want to put it on the ground, or let's say two communities will say, this one is my limit. This one will argue, this is my limit. Then the third party comes. Like the case of maybe state. Two states are arguing and will come as federal, the third person as the umpire. Mm-hmm. Now everybody will be asked to go and bring their claims, the documents to support their claims. Right. Either the oral history or documented history. Then after that, we go to the site. But of recent, what we have observed is some kind of, would I say, political influence. People see the advantage. For instance, a particular state may have, but along the boundary line, maybe solid mineral deposits. So some now tend not to be exact to the boundary they know because of the economic value or the underlining. In such cases, they will start creating scenarios or making it even difficult for us to do our job, even if we know. And the process is that when we want to demarcate a boundary, we now bring the two parties together with us so that it is a totally transparent system. When we invite salespersons to come, because they know that going by the boundaries recorded, it will not favor them, they will start to begin to bring excuses and be withdrawing gradually. And year by year, some of these things happen. So it has many undertones, apart from the limitation, especially when there are issues of solid mineral or economic value along the boundary corridor. That's why you have these classes happening. And they will not want, those who are benefiting will not want government to go and address that matter as at when due and finish with it.
Let me put this on to the institution of surveyors. How well does the state, and in this I mean government, for instance, how much do governments carry along surveyors in sensitive matters of planning and execution of projects here? That's on one leg. The other, how well do individuals involve surveyors when they're carrying out their activities?
No, thank you so much. No, the way government carry along the surveyors is in their policies. I can tell you that there are enough policies by government to guide surveyors. Just like the Surveyor General said that time, the Survey Coordination Act, so many policies. So, and we ensure at the institution that these policies are obeyed by our surveyors in the various states. It's not that, although there are enough policies, but there could be more. For example, we observe that the country is getting old. You know, according to the independence of the, we're about 58 years since independence. Most of our structures are now getting old. Do we monitor these structures? Do we monitor them? Okay, for example, the Cocoa House in Ibadan. You can imagine when Cocoa House was built, do we monitor it? Like, go to Lagos. Okay, Abuja now started developing in 1978. Are we measuring the structures, the roads, the airports? There must be a government policy on subsidence monitoring. That is, for example, the building in Port Harcourt, the 7-story building that came down, collapsed, was it monitored right from foundation? So the monitoring the subsidiary monitoring is to see whether the building is tilting, is anything wrong? So it has to be monitored either yearly or 5 years. So those are the policies we want. Then the second one, which we observe that the government needs to, like the present government now, is providing infrastructures, road infrastructures, railway infrastructures. We need now to establish the monitoring principle of these infrastructures. For example, in Lagos, the Lagos state government is about to introduce the subsidence monitoring of infrastructures in Lagos State. So the federal government can do more in formulating more policies to help the surveyors in their duties and functions.
For the individuals, the citizens, how well do they involve surveyors when they have land matters?
Yes, I can tell you that in Nigeria, Nigerians are well educated. Everybody wants to protect whatever he has. And that's why the CFO, certificate of occupancy, is so important everywhere. And before you can acquire the CFO, then the survey must be done. You must have a title to your property. But we are aware, and we are trying to do many things about it. Where some state governments, we shouldn't forget that survey is under concurrent and legislative. But where the two of them coincide, the legislative overrides that of the concurrent. And in most cases, the law says every land must be surveyed.
Okay.
But we are aware that some state governments, they will say, okay, individuals should submit sketches to obtain CFO. It's a risk. Maybe it's not a risk of today. It may be a risk of tomorrow. Let me give you an example. I was involved in a land dispute. The survey plan that the opponent brought was 1908. And the other person brought a survey plan of 2013.
All right. So
1908,
so many things would have changed.
But I can assure you that the survey plan of 1908 was done according to survey regulations. So the difference between the 1908 survey plan and 2013 survey plan was not much, because the survey was carried out according to the survey regulations. So if individuals can, assuming that 2008 survey plan, 1908, was a sketch plan, definitely it will not be in the same category with the 2013, with the technology. So that's why we advise individuals to ensure that their land should be properly surveyed, and because you don't know what will happen in another 50 years.
All right. Okay. We have our first caller on the line from Jos. Ada calling in. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Welcome back, Cyril.
Go right ahead.
In my opinion, it's better for us to be proactive to avoid or be able to detect any earth tremor, because our response to emergency is usually very slow. That it will be a disaster if we start experiencing earthquakes. Can mining activities and having too many boreholes cause earth tremor or whatever? If it can, what have you done, surveyors, to check these activities? I thank God Nigeria is blessed and not prone to too many natural disasters. The role of surveyors should not be politicized to avoid all these numerous, total collapse of buildings. God bless Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. Well,
yeah, I think she's making a good point, the issue of being proactive. And that's where the surveyors come in, knowing what is happening when. Because if we get to know what is the water table, the depth of the water table, let's say in Abuja, as people are taking more water, drinking from their boreholes, we can still monitor and even give the coordinates. Over 6 months, we can tell you this is the water level before and this is what it is. Because what is surveying? Telling you what is where and when. Every activity, we can do that. And so even in the issue of air tremor issues. So I think for me, I'm in agreement with what you're saying. We have to be proactive by providing these various equipments that are very sophisticated enough and will give us alarm system to prepare that, look, so thing is in the offing, so that we can prepare, and when it happens, we will not be caught unawares.
speaking about that, being proactive, you can tell exactly where the water table is, what's likely to happen. Do you have a disciplined society as to take the relevant information and data that comes out and act on it? I mean, take for instance the issue of boreholes and the water table. If you have a community that is consistently searching for water, would anyone really listen if you provided any kind of information to say, look, if you go on this way, you're going to be doing something to the crust and, you know, the water table, the water... Would anyone really listen under such circumstances?
Well, I think this is where the government needs to come in again with regulations and formulate rules and regulations about how to go about some of these issues. Because if we are not going to deceive ourselves, the more we deplete the health cross, the more we create vacuums all over. And where there are vacuums, there's likely to be a kind of a collapse, because the health cross is not resting on any other thing provided by the nature. Nature has done it in such a way that the water fill up the vacuum itself. We now went in and forcefully removed the water. When we remove that, there's nothing we have put in there to replace that vacuum. And with this, you can look at what is happening in Abuja now. Abuja is a big city, and we have not been able to put in a pipe-borne water to run across the city, making each and every individual, even neighbors, to start searching for water, which is very dangerous. But I know with the equipment we have, and with a data center, this data can be warehoused somewhere for prediction of what is going to happen in the future.
All right. Well, I'm sure more of this will come on as we continue with this discussion. But again, let's still spend a little more time on the question of communities, boundaries, conflicts, disputes. And first, maybe we should look at what kind of collaborative efforts you have with, for instance, the National Boundary Commission and other agencies of government in dealing with the issue of, look, you are moving into where I am, and we've seen conflicts between states, and even if I don't want to mention, there are some disputes that have raged on for such a long time. And even as we speak now, the combatants may have sheathed their swords, but we know that these things can start up again.
Well, our office, we are collaborating with the relevant agencies. Like I said, in the case of interstate boundaries, my office, the Office of Surveyor General Federation, National Boundary Commission, and the relevant security agencies, we go and have meetings with the various states. As I speak, I think tomorrow we have a boundary between, we are discussing on boundary between Edo I think Edo and Delta, or do like that. Be confidence building. You must build confidence among the parties, and that's what we do. And there are international approach to boundary demarcation, delineation, and survey. Like I said earlier, the major challenge is that when some of these boundaries, the stakeholders, some of them see that in this matter, they do not have very credible delimitation instruments, some kind of politics and one thing or the other comes in. And the law, so you see this kind of some tactics to withdraw and going. But we go on doing the advocacy to talk to the people, to understand that life boundary is like this, my fingers. You see, this is one, this one. There's a boundary between the two. And that boundary, even if it is your neighbor's own, you know that this is your neighbor's own, you can be using it. It's like you and your junior brother. If you use this shirt, fine. But you know this shirt does not belong to you. So let us put the boundary as it should be, following the delimitation instruments. Then, if you want to go over, you will say, look, let me take part of your land, farm, and give to you. You can be in possession for a while, and then the person can have it. But in some situations, when there are some other interests, hidden interests, then they become very violent. And another scenario is when one party is far more educated than others, and they have altered the known traditional boundary. But what we are doing more is administrative boundaries, because Nigeria Federation is based on administrative boundaries. It is Ethiopia, which is the second federal republic in Africa, that their boundaries are based on ethnic lines.
Right. Just an addition. I think what I would like to add here is for us to understand that boundaries, most of the boundaries are human creation.
Right. Okay.
One. And secondly, I think the Constitution of Nigeria has somehow made it clear that there is need for the National Boundary Commission and Office of the General of the Federation to delimit the boundaries of each state, in the sense that the geographical expression, let's say called Ocean State, is there in the Constitution. Right. The Constitution has recognized the 36 states as well as the Federal Capital Territory. So those states must have to be defined for them to come into an entity. I think that's one of the biggest problems we have, because such states are not being defined. It's only Abuja, I think, that the boundaries of Abuja have been defined and put in the Constitution of Nigeria. All other states need to have their boundaries demarcated and put in the Constitution of Nigeria, so we will know from X to Y.
Exactly. So how can you remedy this situation?
Good. It's easy. There is need for the offices of Surveillance of the Federation, National Boundary Commission, to interface with the National Assembly, with the executives, so that we can be able, because we had that before. I'm telling you, we had that before. The northern region,
right?
All of the northern provincial boundaries were all there.
But as soon as the 12, 19,
yeah,
and then
something like
right
that,
now 36.
Yeah, 36.
So this has created an issue here. But even Nigeria as an entity, let's even look at that. And people ask sometimes that you tend to wonder when you see the map of Nigeria, and when you look at some maps, they don't look exactly the same. Do you worry about that?
The issue is this, and that is what I've said earlier. there are relevant constitutional and statutory provisions how survey can be done in this country. Don't forget, the Office of Surveyor General of the Federation now came into existence around 1895. The first tertiary institution in this geographical entity called Nigeria was established in 1908 as one of the ones for the Commonwealth called the Federal School of Surveying, Oyo. But along the line, people are now throwing away these provisions. Before you do a work, you consult, make sure the Office of Surveyor General gives an input. Surveyor General of the Federation Office is the only authority in the Federation to produce a map of this country. Now, let me explain. Look at this, my pen. First is a location. This very location has XYZ. On this location, we can tell you the rainfall. On this location, we can tell you the sunshine. On this location, we can tell you the soil type. We can tell you also the mineral. So the first is the location. The other data we are getting are attribute data. That is why before independence and even after, even look at the maps between 1960 to up to 75, 80. You see Federal Surveys Department then producing the rain map of Nigeria, and they write there that this map is published by Surveyor General's office, but the data is from Meteorological Office. Now, as the earth is moving, there are transformation parameters. With technology, there are certain adjustments we do to the map. But when these agencies start on their own to start producing maps without recourse to this office, there are some maps they produce for mineral that if we plot it, those minerals Nigeria into Niger. All because these agencies feel that, today technology has come, they can just go to Google and get a map and start doing it without recourse to the Office of Surveyor General of Federation. And that is why you see these funny kind of shapes of maps. But the federal government has got a policy. There is the National Council on Works in this policy has stated, again, to reiterate what has been written down there. But it is not a palatable situation. You see different kind of maps and boundaries of states being written without the Surveyor General's input, because it is only that office you will go there and collect your map. And any other information you are gathering is an attribute to that location. So when you have an attribute data, the man who has an attribute data is now trying to produce a map. Meanwhile, he does not know these transformation parameters that are to be applied. For instance, the Google map you see, go and use it. You will enter into some kind of place you can't revise. Because that map is based on WGS 84, the World Geodetic System, which must be transformed into the Nigerian system called Minadatum. And the 7 transformation parameters must be applied to that world system before it can properly fit into the Nigerian system. And that is why you see these all kind of maps that on the streets.
Well, interesting. And
it's a criminal offense.
Well, we'll talk about that in the next part, because right now we'll take a short break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. There's so much more to talk about surveying. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We're still talking about surveying. And if we might just take a little more time on the question of the correct mappings and the right maps. We've been talking about what's happening internally, interstate quarrels and disputes. What about Nigeria and its neighbors, for instance, the maps? And you recall when Nigeria had this trouble with Cameroon on the matter of Bakassi. It took a while. There were so many maps. There were some maps that were produced that showed that Bakassi was not in Nigeria. Some maps came and said it's in Nigeria. And at some point in time, many Nigerians were confused. Can we talk about that for a moment?
The Bakassi matter.
Yes. Yes. Yes, perhaps we'll go to you, the director of Geo.
On the issue of Bakassi, the Office of Surveyor General presented their position on that issue. But nobody can really say that this is what really happened. It's better.
Well, of course, Nigeria suffered a legal defeat.
We did. That is why we have to leave it.
Yeah, you know,
it's illegal.
I know, but why we're raising this is that, you know, something like this might happen, you know, with all kinds of maps flying around. What happens tomorrow if one neighboring country, some map surfaces with some parts of, you know, the country showing to be in another part of the country. So this is really what we're talking about. Not about the judgment. Nigeria already lost a legal battle in that, but we're looking at what can happen in the future, especially when people say, look, if you pick up the map, what does it really show? And where are we getting the maps from? That's why I'm raising this.
Well, the fact of it is that any map that is not produced by the Surveyor General of the Federation or that of a state is an illegal map. Because the only authorities to produce a map of the Federation is the Office of Surveyor General of the Federation, while the Surveyor General of each state of the Federation produce the maps of that state. So if one government agency or somebody is producing a map, one, you cannot even go to court to defend that map because the law does not recognize any other person to go to court and present a map of that state other than the Surveyor General of that state or that of the Federation.
Small, I think, an addition to that, fortunately or unfortunately, Africa is a product of our colonization. We had the scramble and partition of Africa. The scramblers, when they came and partitioned, fortunately they did some form of survey which defined the territorial boundary of each of the countries at that time. I can give you an example of the Anglo-French Treaty of 1908, which demarcated the northern region of Nigeria. They emplaced their beacons, I think, right from around 1910, which we were able to trace some of them up to now in the standard form. So I think the whole context is no country in the world is allowed to independently determine its territorial sizes. It must have to be done according to the convention of the international boundaries, must have to be done with the neighbors. And the legal instrument that we have in Nigeria is that Anglo-French Treaty of 1900s, you understand. It has defined the boundaries of Nigeria in all sizes. But of course, like you said, we had the issue, technical and legal defeat regarding Cameroon, Bakassi. Not because of absence of maps, there were maps, of course. Our team, the Nigerian team, ended up going to the UK, what do you call, ordnance survey offices, where they deposited some of the maps, earlier maps, and they were retrieved. And I think we were defeated technically. We were defeated, but not because of the absence of maps. There were maps that time. Yeah.
Well, Nigeria has been facing security challenges for some time now. How can this profession, surveyors and surveying generally, assist in helping, security agencies, with mappings of territories and where they can, how can this profession assist in surmounting these security challenges?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me say, you see, the Office of Surveyor General of the Federation technically defines the territory of Nigeria. And after that definition, then the security agencies, the intelligence agencies, other stakeholders now go and do their work. Not only defining, the second thing we do is providing, that is the real objective of that office, why Office of Surveyor General is established, to provide you spatial information, to provide survey and mapping information and data and services to all sectors of the economy, to government and the citizens. And that means that my office has all the data, man-made and natural features. So for the security and the military, we've been collaborating very much. And most of the data is available. We have been collaborating in very deep at different platforms.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. We have another caller on the line from Adamawa State. Charles. Hello, Charles.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, this Reverend Charles Thomas Nubasajeti from Adamawa State.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to appreciate you, Cyril Stoba, our in-law from Adamawa, and all your guests over there in the studio. Thank you, sir. I just want to contribute. The government should have very good willpower, political will towards this. It's not just policy on the blueprint or on paper. We want something that will work for all Nigerians. We sympathize with the victims of the 7-story building that collapsed in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. About 9 lives were lost. And imagine the colossal loss of life. And even the owner of the 7-story building, we also lost. So what we are saying is that our surveyors should actually collaborate with the government, and there should be political will on the part of the government. Let them do their work. Let them put supervisors all over the 36 states to be going around to checkmate all these activities, to ensure that there are no collapsed buildings, and to ensure that areas where people are building are approved. There should be approval. And then the quality of the materials people are using should be verified or checkmated by the engineers and the surveyors, the building engineers, the quantity surveyors. Everyone, all hands must be on deck. You know, the architectural design, the topography of the soil or the land where that building will be constructed, either a story building or dwarf building. All we have to checkmate these activities to safeguard life, because we are dealing with human life. If these things are not done the right way, people will keep dying. So I want to appreciate the effort of the general there, you know, of the surveyor, the man that is wearing cap now. I'm seeing him now. You know, let him put more effort. You put more effort into your ministry, and please let all hands be on deck and let us come together. Sensitize people. You know, people need enlightenment and awareness. Yeah, it's not just that I have money, I just start building. There are implications. So I want to appreciate what the Tuesday Live is doing. I'm a Reverend Charles from Adamawa. We are in-law to our Oga Cyril Stoba. We want to bless all of you there in the studio. Thank you so much for the good work you're doing. Right. May the Lord bless Nigeria in Jesus' name.
All right. Amen. Thank you. And we'll say amen to that. Thank you very much, Charles. So, well.
Yes, well, on the building collapse, many factors are involved. One of them is that the professionals in the built industries, some of them are sidelined. I used to work, I come from the private sector, and I worked for Costain, West Africa before. and I know what I'm talking about. Apart from substandard, some professionals have been sidelined. Now, first the surveyor surveys the land, provide topographical details, that is the relief. Then the architect designs. That building is only put back by the surveyor. You now set at the building. And for every story, the surveyor will look at the verticality of the building. Well, in the design, if they say the floor should be 6 inches thick, it is a surveyor that will ensure that it's now 6 inches thick. But they will not. So most of the causes there are because of the lack of using all the relevant professionals. If you want to build in a large span of land, the geologist should come in, the soil scientists, to be able to look at what is beneath. And this sometimes is circumvented.
All right.
And that is these are some of the issues that we need to address at policy platform.
Okay. Beyond even just the buildings, let's expand to even the road infrastructure. What is the input to the construction of roads? You talked about topography earlier on, you know, knowing what kind of soil. And isn't it a worry that sometimes you find roads don't even last a third of their lifespan, and they're either washed away or they cave in at some point? What's the input of surveyors in the development of this infrastructure?
Thanks for the question. In fact, it's like the Surveyor General said of the Federation, it's worrisome that surveyors are not, it's not that there is no policy. There are policies where each professional should partake in a particular infrastructure. Like the road we mentioned. The surveying input in a road construction is not less than 55%.
Yes, 55%.
That is the registered surveyor or a qualified surveyor engaged in this construction. If I may ask, the survey records for Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, where are they? Are they lodged with the Surveyor General of the Federation? That's a federal road. The Surveyor General of the Federation does not know where the records are. Somebody will just go and do what. So the records are lost. And therefore, the road, when the road starts failing, where do you go first? You go to the records. When you cannot even see the records, it's not properly lodged because a non-qualified surveyor has been engaged. Okay, let's look at the thickness. The thickness of the roads, where a surveyor is supposed to calculate the thickness according to the contract terms. No, we all saw the thickness of the airport road in Abuja. The day I saw it, I saw the thickness, it was like, But most of the roads, you will see that the contract terms, the thickness is about maybe half a meter or 1 meter. But some millimeters are just done. So it's good to separate. If we separate, like the government is investing heavily on roads now, it's good to separate the survey content from the engineering content. It's very important.
And if we extend that to communities that suffer as a result of gully erosion, structures are already put up in those places, the input of surveyors in determining the soil type, you know, and if those places are appropriate for the activities that are carried out there, you're also part of that.
Well, like I did said before, if there are issues of erosion, surveyor is given the location. In this very spot, there are many attributes. Some places were maybe dustbin. Now, many years, people don't know that it's no longer a dustbin. They go to build. So in this very location, what is the soil type? That is why I advocate for the use of all the stakeholders to be involved in this construction industry or build industry. That way, we'll be able to avoid. If you want to build your personal house, you still have to get the surveyor, a private surveyor, to go and survey your house and can do furthermore of that, the status. Because long before independence, Nigerian Geological Agency and other bodies have the soil type of this country. Even as a private surveyor, I had those documents, those maps showing the various soil types, which should guide you. So for doing things in a sustainable manner, get the professionals to guide you in your desire to carry out physical development. That is my advice.
There's another caller on the line, I believe. Adegoke calling in from Ogun. Hello, Adegoke.
Hello.
Right, go right ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, Adegoke, we're waiting to hear from you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Well, perhaps Adegoke will call back, and let's still extend this issue of the input of the professionals. And yes, the Nigerian economy has been sustained by oil. Almost all those who reside in those producing areas will tell you about all kinds of things happening, and that the companies exploit so many things, and that the country itself is not aware of certain practices by these oil companies. Can surveyors, or are surveyors in a position to help in providing the exact location, to know, for instance, what's beneath the crust of the earth in those producing areas, and how much is being taken out? Are surveyors in a position to help out in that direction?
Yes, surveyors can determine, and we do that in the oil and gas sector. Incidentally, I come from a community that is oil producing. OML 36 in Shell before. I have Ajib, Shell, Konoko, a lot of companies around my village. But like you said, act correctly. You see, technology, nobody wants to let you to have technology. If you don't have your people, sorry. Nigerian surveyors are very trained in the oil and gas sector. And surveyors are well able to determine even the quantity of crude oil, because what is oil? You are talking of volume. And if you have oil in a particular storage, for example, you can do sounding of that place and determine how much quantity of oil in that container. And but it still goes in for the multinationals to allow. That's why I want to thank God and thank the president for this local content executive order, because my experience in the oil and gas sector for about 18 years, when you come in, they will not want you to know. And they will now send their small boys, some with OND, some WAEC, call them big names, they come in to do the jobs, who you can lecture and teach. So Nigerian surveyors are well able. Some of us have been doing it, and that is the platform that I came to government system.
Right.
So we are very much available, and they are doing very well. Not only in Nigeria, outside. That is also the reason how a country like Namibia had to come to Nigeria to take a surveyor to be made the Surveyor General of that country in the past.
Okay. Another question coming in from, or perhaps a comment coming in from Akure, and this is Dari calling in. Hello, Dari.
Hello?
Hello, go right ahead.
Hello?
Go on.
Hello?
Hello, Dari, go on.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Good
Go
evening.
right ahead. Your name is on screen. Go on.
Yeah, I'm Dari Uguntinadi from Akure. I'm Dari Uguntinadi from Akure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to find out what is the Office of Surveyor General of the Federation is doing to make sure that the federal government updates the map of Nigeria. So that it can be able to fit into geographical development that is really happening within the environment presently.
All right. Okay. That's the question.
And that will be able to cope with other developed world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Surveyor General heard you.
Thank you very much, Dari. The Office of Surveyor General of the Federation is working assiduously to ensure that the 12th edition of the administrative map of Nigeria is published. And in doing this, we have acquired a satellite image map of the country at 2.5 meter resolution from where we can extract, and that is available for the state surveyor generals to use, because for us to get the administrative map of the country, all state surveyor generals have to send in their maps, the respective maps of the states. Then we bring it together. There's a process, and commence the process. But what I will say is that some of our external boundaries, we have in some boundaries some little disputes. Some areas we have not finalized the boundary lines. So I will say in the surveying parlance is still a provisional one, because the boundaries have not been exactly defined, our survey is. But as I speak to you, we are working hard to ensure to produce the 12th edition of the administrative map of the country, and also ensuring that we provide the necessary technologies to support our states, the state surveyor general's offices. So thank you for that question. We're on top of it, and the federal government is very desirous to see some of these things put behind us so that we can meet up advanced world. In meeting up the advanced world, the federal government has gone steps further, acquiring the drones, as you see at the background of this Tuesday Live, acquiring very scientific drones where we can see up to half an inch of your fence, half as each details of your fence, and with which you can get land, your titles to land, and use that to get the title document to go to bank to get loans to ensure that the debt capital in land is actually become active. So we are working towards that to ensure that the diversification program of the administration to agriculture and solid minerals is really brought into fruition to ensure that the dividends of democracy towards that direction is achieved by government and the citizens. So thank you, Dari, for the question.
All right. And so at this point, let's find out how much you have been able to key into the use of modern technology. You know, today things are made that much easier by the level of technology that's available, especially when we look at your department, for instance.
Thank you, sir. In the use of modern technology in solving the problem of surveying and mapping, the advent of the core is one of the latest technology in surveying and mapping. The second one is the use of the drone, because classical method of surveying for a small area, let's assume, takes a month before completion. With the use of the drone now, within probably some few hours, if not a day, you will be able to get through with the data acquisition, now leaving the processing aspect of it. In the real sense of it, a drone is nothing other than an equipment that can be used and very fast in data acquisition for be it security, defense, navigation, and then sometimes surveillance. So the incursion of these technological advances into the surveying profession has greatly improved the surveying profession. Because judging with the classical method of carrying out all these what's it called, the method of carrying out the survey, it may take months before you successfully complete the mapping of an area. But with the advent of a drone now, it takes weeks with proper software.
Maybe a small addition, so if you permit. Nigeria is one of the few countries in Africa, I mean about 5 countries now, that have established what at international level, international standard, what we call the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. That National Spatial Data Infrastructure is the infrastructure that are needed for mapping the country so that the resources of the country can be utilized for the population of the nation. I think we have South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, and 2 others I can't exactly remember, about 5 of them. Nigeria is blessed with satellite. Nigeria Sat-1, which has stopped working. We have Sat-2. We have so many coast stations. We have regulatory frameworks. There are the regulations, the Service Council of Nigeria, and the policy also. They're all there. I think the institutions are also producing a lot of trained manpower, which are able to utilize, because, sorry to be small, in the past, like he said, surveyors will always go to the bush, spend so many hours do work, but now with a simple touch of a button, you can be able to get all that data, all that information, because those spatial data infrastructure are already in place in Nigeria. We have the satellite, the coast station, etc. What we are, I think, are lacking, and which I think we all need to come in, is the issue of the legislative framework. That has not been made to keep in pace with the development that is taking place at the national levels. You know, the issue of the regulation versus innovation. Our laws need to be updated seriously, because if you say we are going to be sacrosanct by the provision of the law, all these new technologies we are speaking, we cannot be able to apply them, because you are going to contravene the provision of the law. Okay. So we need to update our laws so that they can be concurrent and current with the realities on the ground. Thank you.
Yes. Just to complement what you have said, at the institutional level, an average surveyor in Nigeria is very current, very, very current. That we don't need experts from anywhere. And we want to, at the institutional level, we want to appreciate the Surveyor General because if you are a surveyor and you are not patronized, how do you progress? The Surveyor General, they do that, so they encourage an average surveyor in Nigeria to progress due to adequate patronage. And also, the Legislative Council, we want to appreciate the level of education they give to an average surveyor. Like, we just came back from Zambia about 2 days ago. 2 days ago, we attended the Castle, that is the Commonwealth Conference. There, about 20 papers were presented. 12 were presented from Nigeria at that conference. And that shows the current level of surveyors in Nigeria. Also, there is always an annual program. It's called the Congress of the International Federation of Nigeria. For the past 15 years, Nigeria has been the largest contingent in that FIG, we call it FIG, International Federation of Surveyors. We attend, and papers are presented by Nigerians to the point that that conference was held in Nigeria in 2013 because the whole world was so surprised about the level of the Nigerian surveyor. So we don't need experts in Nigeria. A Nigerian surveyor is capable of doing any aspect. You know, there are about 5 aspects of survey: the cadastre, the hydro, the geodesy, the GIS. Every area and every surveyor can cover it. Thanks a lot.
So, staying with you,
yes.
I think it was the first caller we had on this program who talked about enlightenment, awareness. Now you're telling us that the Nigerian surveyor is well equipped. You don't need to import surveyors from any part of the world. You have Nigerians who are capable, they can do this. How much awareness has the institution been able to create about the proficiency of Nigerian surveyors?
Yes, thanks. At the level of the institution, we do a lot of monitoring. We monitor our members. Like the Surveyor General is our member, the Registrar is our member, the Acting Director is our we monitor them. And we are satisfied with their performance. That is, the surveyors. Take, for example, in Nasarawa, Edo, the state government there recently engaged some foreigners to do some survey works, which, if the Surveyor General of the Federation can engage surveyors within Nigeria to carry out survey within Nigeria, how can the state government now engage foreigners? Then that means there is something is happening. Maybe they are not well informed or they don't know. So when we see such situations, we take action, and in most cases we succeed. But we do a lot of monitoring to make sure that surveying services are not carried out by foreigners.
Okay. Now, regulation, standards, and of course, like every other profession, quackery. How do you deal with that issue?
That's a very tough one. In every profession, like you said, there are quackeries. But from my own perspective, quackeries exist because they are backed by professionals. That is my own personal perspectives. In most cases, the issues we come across is that quack surveyor does not operate independent of a registered surveyor. What is usually done is that the quack surveyor will be hired by somebody, and they lower the cost, they lower the quality, and they lower the time. You know, these are the three key factors of the triangle: the price, the time, and you cut corners. And then any work done by a quack surveyor is not acceptable for registration, because any survey you do, it has to be registered, either in the Office of Survey of the Federation or Office of Survey of the state where that job was done. What the quacks usually do is they usually go to the licensed surveyor, registered surveyor, and that surveyor will stamp that work of the quack, that it gets acceptability, you understand? So it's from my own perspectives, from the experience I'm seeing, but there are also other factors that bring about quackery. They are sustained in that way, you understand? Those we call the surveyor signature hawkers. They are not money. They are not many, to be frank. In any society,
when you find situations like that, what do you do?
Yeah. Yes, okay. Yeah, there are the checks and balances in the agency. There is what we call the surveyors investigating panel. There is any complaint of quackery, unethical practices, misdemeanors by surveyors. There is a panel that is constituted by the law. That panel is not even reporting to the council. It reports to the disciplinary committee. And that committee, the panel will investigate. If the surveyor is found to be culpable, then they recommend appropriate disciplinary action, and the disciplinary committee will serve that. That includes striking off the name of the person from the register of surveyors. I want to come back to the issue of the quackery. Also, people were quite afraid of the task, of the demand for you to become a surveyor. It's really quite tasking. You cannot become a surveyor in less than 10 years. You cannot. Right from your secondary school, you cannot, hardly. It's difficult if you add. So people feel, okay, let us cut corners, you understand. The standards are so high that a lot of people cannot even make it, you understand. So because of the standard, and we have to keep the standard high. Otherwise, any lowering of standard in terms of surveying will have very negative consequences for the nation. So these are some of the things that we are looking at, and I think we are trying to reach out to engage a lot of people and see that things are done in the right perspectives. But generally, quackery is everywhere, even in the medical profession, it's everywhere. There's no exception to that.
Yes. Just to chip in, at the institution level, we try to inform the general public that when they want to carry out a survey service, they should engage a surveyor that is a registered surveyor. Because there are laws to discipline the registered surveyor. But in this country, there is no law to discipline a quack. A quack is a floating person. It's just floating somewhere. It's not known.
Anyway, it's a criminal offense.
So the layman who goes on and needs surveying services, how does he, what does he do? How does he, find...
You should look for a registered surveyor.
There are registered surveyor
everywhere.
All over the country.
Like he said, there are 2,500 registered surveyors in this country. So they are not invisible. They are there.
Of course, when you approach them, you would see something, which tells you that the person you're talking to is a registered surveyor.
Yes.
And in addition, at least in each state of the Federation, there is a Surveyor General's office. He has the record of all the surveyors practicing in that state. So if I need a survey services, what that person needs is to go to the Surveyor General's office. Because the Surveyor General will not do that survey. It's a private survey. He will say, look, these are the names, these are the addresses. And the professional association has standards. Okay. Signboards too, how your signboard will look like. So if you're a quack, your signboard will not fit in to the signboard of the professional specs.
Okay, so as we round off and you move ahead, what are the challenges and how are you surmounting those to take Nigeria to the next level?
For Office of Surveyor General, the first challenge is issue of awareness. Like I said, before independence, the Surveyor General of the Federation of that of the states or provinces are contacted. But now, you can imagine the government body will award the survey and mapping contract outside this country, offshore it. 80% of the job of survey and mapping has security implication. And so if you award a contract to somebody in, let's say, South Africa, come and take the location of banks in Nigeria or whatever, it's a huge security risk. I'm just giving an example. So that awareness, especially among the government agencies, is very important. Like the Deputy President NIS said of some states, where the constitutional office, the Surveyor General of those states are set aside and a foreigner is coming. You cannot go to Britain without your registration with RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and be carrying instruments on the streets of London. But here you see all kinds of people around doing our work, which is compromising our national security. So the first challenge is one, this issue of setting aside provisions of law and all the rest and not caring about our national security, which I think is. The second one is the issue of course, the United Nations has said a resolution long time before now that 2.5% of the national budget should be earmarked for surveying and mapping. Because surveying is your ubiquitous and it goes to every aspect of our lives. As far as we're in Nigeria, you want to know locations, you know what is happening. It's only the Surveyor General. You see, you have Accountant General who is talking about the finance of the papers, the documents about finance. What is the Surveyor General? The reverse is the physical inventory, which is with the Surveyor General. And so one needs to understand that when it comes to physical inventory knowledge, you should go to that office to have. And that's what we are doing with quite many federal agencies. And even this satellite image map I'm talking, we're giving to over 25 federal government agencies that are using it. And we also provide training because we have 2 training institutions, one set up by the United Nations called the African Regional Institute for Geospatial Information Science and Technology. It's located in that campus of OAU, Ile-Ife. The other one is the one I mentioned about, the Federal School of Surveying, established in 1908. Yeah, so that, yes, a long time.
All alumni.
So these are what we do. And so those are the major challenges. The technological challenge is there in terms of funds to acquire more. Like these call stations, Nigeria needs to have about 250 to 300 call stations. Right now, but so far we have only 18. 18.
So.
Yeah, when we go through all. As I speak, we have about 18. And the people are here now. In fact, we are going to Port Harcourt to install that one, rehabilitate it, not a new one, because some ones have gone off. Thank you very much.
All right, so
at,
yes.
At the institution level, although the Surveyor General have said it, I want to appreciate the government for funding surveying and mapping, but it could be more. It could be, right now it's far low because of what the SDF mentioned. The UN resolution, which says 2.5%. Right now, the percentage is almost 0.001% that is being funded. Then the challenges, another challenge is now that the country, we know that the United States got their independence about 252 years ago. Ours is just 50, but we need to be proactive. So there's need for this policy on monitoring of our structures, the road, the bridges, the houses, high-rise houses that need to monitor. Then on the educational side, the Federal School of Survey, like the SDF mentioned, needs to be upgraded. Yeah. A school that was established in 1908, I think it would be good for survey in this country if that school can be upgraded and is made to award degrees in surveying. Most of us pass through that school. Okay. Most of us, almost all of us. Okay. Yeah. So it would be so good for the country if the school can be upgraded. So then the last one is this separation. Okay. The survey content from engineering projects. Right.
Just one comment, sorry. It's about the issue of the funding. I think since I came on board, the federal government funding has increased by not less than 2,000% in these last 3 years.
So, but you can still do it more.
Yes, so they are doing a good thing. And in terms of the policy, there's now a national policy on monitoring of bridges, and every 5 years, all the cities, we have to look at the growth of the cities as well as built. These are National Council on Works resolutions.
Survey content also.
So there are some policies now being done by the present administration with respect to that. I just want to...
All right, so it's at this point we'll have to leave this conversation. We've spoken at length about surveying and the contributions of the profession to Nigeria's development. So I'd like to thank our guests for being here. The Surveyor General of the Federation, Ebusinte Awudu, is a fellow of the Nigerian Institution of Surveyors. Yes, also a member of the National Institute. And of course, we've had here as well Mohammed Mansour Kabir, the Registrar, Surveyors Council of Nigeria, also a fellow.
No.
Okay. Fellow to be. Fellow to be, all right. Well, member. And the others. Well, all right. Let me also say a big thank you to Adibumai Abdul Ghani Ademi, Acting Director, Geodesy Department, Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation. Thank you very much. Also a member of the Nigerian Institution of Surveyors. And of course, the Deputy President of the Nigerian Institution of Surveyors, Kayode Oluwamotimi, also a member. Not to worry. Thank you very much. Well, all four of them surveyors, as we have said, and we've been here talking about the contributions of the profession to national development. So we'll leave this conversation here this time, and we'll also say a big thank you to you two for being part of this program. Next week, we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.